So, so we're live right now. So I'm with Jesus Corona, and we were speaking earlier. I was saying that I found your content on TikTok, love your grind, love your brand. And just to add some context, can you just mind telling the audience who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Jesus Corona. My online personal brand is Boxed Up Entrepreneur. And my whole life, I grew up thinking that I was different than everybody else. My parents and I were born in Mexico, so I am a first-generation immigrant. And because of that, my parents spoke Spanish at home. All of my friends, were English speaking. They all had the nice houses, the pools and everything. And I never had that. My parents always worked really low paying jobs, just the typical immigrant story. And so I grew up my entire life thinking that I was different from everybody and that I was at a disadvantage from everybody else. And I felt boxed up my entire life. I felt like I had to hide who I was. I was ashamed to speak Spanish when I was younger. And I never felt like I could truly be me until about March of 2019, when my dad tried to start his own business. And it failed, and he got into a really bad economic kind of situation. And I wasn't in a position where I could help him at that time, because after I graduated high school, I was partying, drinking, doing drugs, all that stuff, just because I was in so much pain. And I felt like that was the only way I could escape from that. And it was until that moment where my dad was like borderline depressed because he was working 100 hours a week trying to make this business work. It failed. All his money just went away because of it. And I wasn't in a position where I could help him. And so that kind of was the turning point for me, where I was like, I don't ever want to feel like this again. I need to do something with my life, right? Because I also knew that college wasn't an option for me. I always knew that. And so I went to college for half a semester, dropped out. And so I didn't really have an idea of what I was going to do with my life. And so until that moment. And so I started doing drop shipping. And it went well. Within the first 3 months, I was able to scale it to like $10,000 in profit for a single month. But there was just way too many things happening, way too many things going wrong. And then my account on eBay and on Amazon got suspended. And so I was back to zero and I had no idea what to do. But luckily for me, around that same kind of time, I started listening to a lot of Gary Vee and a lot of Tony Robbins. And Tony Robbins was really like that cornerstone for me that kept me going. And then Gary Vee was the person who was telling me that TikTok was the hot thing. He would call you this and that if you weren't on TikTok. And, growing up thinking that I was different from everybody else, I also grew up having a bad self-image. I was overweight when I was little. I have glasses, I'm Hispanic, whatever. It's all these limiting beliefs that I had in my mind, But, I was like, whatever. Let me just try to put myself out there on this TikTok thing that I have no idea what it is. And let's just see what happens. And so I was on TikTok for about a month and a half without anything popping off, but I just stayed consistent. I stayed consistent, posting 2 to 3 to 4 times every single day.
What did you post? Was it just like something generic, or did you have like an idea? Or
it was just very generic. At that point, I was reselling stuff, doing going to like Goodwill and finding stuff for cheap and then reselling it on eBay. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of teaching people how to do that, I guess. And it wasn't doing very well because I had no idea what I was doing on the app. I was just kind of recording and hoping for the best. Until one video where I showed people the exact process of how to go from finding the object to finding if it's profitable to actually listing it on the marketplace. That video got 80,000 views, and I got my first little taste of what it was like to go viral. And from that moment, I was like, all right, every single video from here on out is going to do 80,000 views or better. Like, this is it. This is my big break. And then for like 20 videos after that, I went right back down to getting like 100 views per video. But I stayed consistent. That's the important part. I stayed with it. I trusted the process. I had one little hit, so I knew that I had the potential to do it, Mm-hmm. And then fast forward about 2.5 months after I first got started, and I was getting my first 500,000 view video, 600,000 view video, 800,000 view video, and then 1 million views. And from that moment, I was like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm starting to get the hang of this. Now it's time to go super hard. And yeah, within 3 months of me starting, I had 40 million monthly views on TikTok. And one
Damn.
thing just kind of started leading to another.
So you started in like what, December, January, November?
I started early October of
Okay.
2019 is when I first got started. And it was around January-ish where it really started to kind of
To really click.
to really start to yeah, take off.
So then once it started clicking, when did you decide? So did you have like was it always boxed up entrepreneur, or did you have your own personal brand? And then from there, once it started clicking, you kind of dove in or pivoted to your brand.
It was always boxed up entrepreneur because I had that idea of I want to inspire people to get out of their shells and
Mm-hmm.
actually pursue their dream, you know? And like I said, I always felt like I was boxed in. I felt like I was a boxed up person. And I always considered myself an entrepreneur. So I thought the name Boxed Up Entrepreneur was a cool way to kind of get that message out there. If you ever feel like you're boxed up, you feel like you got to pretend like you're someone you're not.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Like just do it, and people will start listening to what you got to say.
Yeah. So around the same time, so you said that you weren't doing any drop shipping, right? And you
At
were
this point, no.
no, so no side hustles, just focusing on TikTok, because I know eventually I saw one of your YouTube videos, and you're talking about how no sorry your Instagram videos, and you're like, yeah, like it sucks how TikTok is gonna go away because you made a good amount of money through your service, because you also teach people how to use TikTok and monetize it, right? And obviously if TikTok
Hmm.
is gone, then that income is gonna go away, you know. And I think you said like I forgot how much you made, but I think you made like an impressive figure, and that's really cool, you know? So at one point, did you start to like really monetize and really, I guess, put your brand into a sort of position where you can start like making money off of it?
Yeah. So once I got the hang of TikTok for myself, um, I was like, I wonder if I can repeat the same kind of results that I had for someone else, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so I hit up this multimillionaire entrepreneur that used to go to my gym. So I used to work at the gym. I used to be the guy that made the shakes for him every time
Mm-hmm.
he was done with working out. So I had a little bit of contact with him. He knew who I was, and I knew who he was. And so I just sent him a DM on Instagram with it was a screenshot of my analytics that showed, I believe it showed like 60 million views within a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent him that screenshot, and I sent him a message, and I was like, hey, dude, there's this new really hot platform called TikTok. These are the results that I was able to get. Me being a relative no one, you know, because he already has 1 million followers on Instagram. I was like, me
Mm-hmm.
being a relative no one, imagine what I can do for you. Now, to this day, I believe that how I finished this message was the moment that changed my life, because not only did I offer him a service, but then I also said that I'm willing to work for free for the first month or for however
Mm-hmm.
long necessary. And he completely like disregarded everything that I said before and just focused on me saying that I would work for free, and was like, all right, man, like I see what you're doing. If you're willing to work for free, come over, we'll shoot some content and we'll see how it goes. And the very first video that we did together got 10 million views
On his account.
on
On
his
his,
account. Yes.
that's crazy.
Yeah. And so from that moment, he was hooked. From that moment, he was like, all right, man, like I believe what you're doing. Like, you know, you don't have to work for free. I'm willing to pay you. Let's just get started because this is it. And so that moment, he paid me, I think $2,500 for that first month. And we just started scaling his account, and within the first, I think, month and a half, he was already crossing over 100,000 followers, and he understood the power of this platform. Now he sells a $25,000 service, and through TikTok we were able to sell a couple of those. He was able to get a couple leads and actually close some of those deals. So he
Mm-hmm.
was actually monetizing this TikTok account. I think he made $250,000 to this point because of
Sheesh.
TikTok alone. And so now that was the very first moment where I closed my first $8,000 deal. Every month, it's just 8,000 reoccurring, and all I have to do is create content for him and have him be the face of the account.
Mm-hmm.
And so once I realized that I could do it for him, and I realized that I could do it for myself, then I started reaching out to other people, seeing if I could recreate this process for other people too.
Mm-hmm.
And the very next client that I got, he was at 5,000 followers when we took over. And for him, it wasn't so much about growing, but just being able to monetize his platform. And so we grew to 7,000 followers in that first month. But out of those 7,000 followers, we were able to make $10,000 positive ROI. And so it was just like, all right, like I've made this guy $250,000. I made this guy $10,000 in the first month. Now it's really time to go hard. Let's create a system where we can replicate this at scale for a bunch of other people. And so I took on a couple of other clients, that millionaire entrepreneur, he hooked me up with a couple of other millionaires, and we just started making deals and just started making money. And yeah, it just quickly scaled to over $20,000 for me every month, handling a couple of accounts. And I was like, all right, this is cool, but now I want to help the little guys. I want to help other people that were in my situation that had no idea what to do. I want to teach them how to, the systems and the process that I have in place for myself. I want to teach other people how to do it so they can replicate this process and start making money from their TikToks. And yeah, so that's when I created the course, and it's been going good so far.
So when you first hit up that guy, when you DM'd him, like, was he like, did you DM other people, or was he like your go-to, like the make or break?
He was my go-to just because I knew that I had, like, he knew me, like, in person. I had had conversations with him before. He knew of my existence prior to me DMing him. And yeah, so I just DM'd him. But I truly believe that I would not have gotten a response, or I would not have gotten the deal that I got had I not been willing to just work for free for the first couple of months, because I wasn't so focused on the short term, but I was focused on building a long-term relationship with him.
Yeah, that's definitely, damn, that's crazy. Like, you knew like an actual millionaire, you were at the gym with him. Like, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of like, that makes me think, like, I feel like the people who are closest to that you probably don't know are people that can like really change your life, go from 0 to 100. And it's kind of cool how, like, yes, you DM'd him, but you used like your own social, like, local bubble to find that extra push in your brand. You know what I mean? And I just find it really fascinating how, like, there's a lot of ways to make money. And like right now with TikTok being like fairly new, it's just really cool how you're like monetizing it and like just providing value to like a lot of people, because like I said, with my TikTok, I was too shy to put myself out there, right? And I'm not an artist or anything, but I just drew stuff, right? And I made like corny little videos, right? And then like fast forward like 3 months, I was like, you know what? Like, in reality, like in TikTok, you're not really talking to anyone. You're speaking in front of a camera. And then you have like, I do like engage a lot in the comments and whatnot, right? But in reality, like, I feel like I'm talking to nobody in front of the camera, right? No one. So I'm like, this is not that bad, because I'm an extreme introvert, to be honest. But on TikTok, it's like, I'm talking to nobody, right? And then it started to pop off, and I was like, oh snap, this is really dope. And obviously like TikTok now being down, it's gonna suck. But like now, like, this leads to the question, like, if TikTok really does go down, what's your pivot? Because I know you have an impressive following on Instagram as well. I don't know if you utilize other social media platforms, but you already have your service, you already have your clients, and I'm pretty sure you're going to get referrals. So like, if TikTok does go down, what's kind of like your next pivot, if you've thought about that?
Yeah, so before I was going really, really hard on TikTok, I was leveraging Instagram, and I was making a little bit of money on Instagram, not too much. I was probably making like $2,000 a month just from Instagram alone.
But by that, but you mean like by acquiring like clients, right?
Yes.
Okay.
At a smaller scale. Because I also do mentorship. So I do like mentorship, and I do like full on automation where I take care of your whole TikTok account. So I understood how to do outreach on Instagram, how to do proper outreach on Instagram to actually close clients through DMs. So I understand the Instagram culture. So if TikTok were to be banned today, right, I have no issue shifting my focus over to Instagram, because Instagram is as a platform where you can make a lot of money as well if you know what you're doing. Now, the reason that I kind of shifted away so much from Instagram was because TikTok is hot. TikTok is fast. Like, it's so easy to scale on TikTok as opposed to what it is on Instagram. Now, that doesn't mean that Instagram is impossible to scale and make money from, but it just takes a little more time, a little more patience. Whereas TikTok, it's a lot faster. So that's why I really wanted to double down on TikTok. But that doesn't mean that Instagram is useless. It doesn't mean that you can't make money on Instagram. It just means that the process is a little bit longer. It takes a little more patience, and it takes a little more to scale, but it doesn't mean it's impossible.
Yeah, I think like subconsciously, like if you're used to having like 1,000 like new followers a day, or hundreds like a day, and then on Instagram you have like 10 or a couple dozen. You know, it's like it's a major change. But like you said, like you really got to utilize all the social media platforms and just like adapt or die. You know what I
Yep.
mean? But like, yeah,
Hmm.
like definitely Instagram is like a really good platform to make money, right? There's so many brands out there. But in terms of like, how do you like really grow on Instagram? Because it's a lot tougher. The organic reach on Instagram is really low compared to TikTok.
Yeah. So right now, what everyone should be doing is trying to funnel their TikTok traffic to their Instagram as much as possible. Because with the future of TikTok, kind of in the air right now, you don't know really what's going to happen. It's out of our control. You want to get as many of those followers onto your Instagram so that you can kind of keep that connection and that momentum rolling on Instagram. The best way to grow on Instagram, honestly, nowadays is you have to pay to play. Like that's just the reality of the situation.
Like paid ads.
Because yeah, like paid ads, shout outs on other people's pages, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. Because the amount of reach that you get on Instagram is just pretty much dead. I remember The Rock, right? He's got like 200 million followers on Instagram, and he was complaining because he's averaging 500,000 likes per post. That's less than 1% engagement. That's much less than 1% engagement. And so he was also saying how it's, Instagram is forcing you to pay to play if you want to grow, if you want to get any outreach. Like all of my influencer friends, like multimillionaires that have connections that I've made, every post that they put on Instagram, they immediately attach an ad to it and then just try to get it out to as many people because that's really the only way to get any sort of outreach nowadays.
Mm-hmm. So when you make a paid ad, like doesn't have to be like you selling a service or a product. It can just be like I listen to like a lot of Gary Vee too, and he says like okay, like when you have like a paid ad, you want to have like a jab right hook. Not every paid ad has to be that right hook to acquire clients,
Mm,
right? Is that like
right.
what do you do for like those jabs? Do you just provide like straight value on how to like grow on TikTok to find clients?
Um, so I I have mixed feelings towards Gary Vee now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that he says that I agree with, but there's also a lot that he says that I kind of disagree with nowadays. Just because of my own evolution and me listening to other entrepreneurs who have other messages, I feel like my story resonates with a couple of other people. Like I follow a lot of Russell Brunson. He's kind of like my guy right now, more so than Gary Vee. And Russell Brunson talks a lot about the the dream client, the dream 100, right? Where you have to understand who is really your dream client. And you have to write out all these attributes of what your dream client likes, who they are, where they're at, who they follow, all these attributes. It's basically just a reflection of who you are. You write down this list of all of these attributes and you start making content around every single one of them. So you're not just focused on one thing because if you're known as one thing, then people will only follow you for that one thing. So like for my example, if I were to only post TikTok growth tips and monetization, then people only have one reason to follow me. But if I'm posting, about my fitness journey, about my love for EDM music, about TikTok, about entrepreneurship, motivation, all these different things that I like, then I give different people different reasons to want to follow me. So
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, like before, I post a lot of like EDM stuff because I'm a big raver, right? And I actually got a client who messaged me because he was like, "Hey, I followed you because I like the music choices that you have. What is this TikTok service that you have?"
Yeah.
And so from that lead, from posting stuff about EDM, I got someone who was interested in TikTok, and then I closed a $2,000 a month deal right there.
I need to ask a question real quick. So when you message him through your boxed up entrepreneur brand, right? It wasn't
Right.
through because like I always feel like when I message someone and have a face to like say I like my own personal brand and I messaged you, you can see my face and you trust me more, right? Instead, I actually like when I hit you up on Instagram, I DM'd you through Get the Bag Life, right? And just a logo. And it's less trustworthy because there's not a face to it, right? Like what do you have to say? Like I always get confused or like always have to rethink like what's the best way to really message someone, like is it better to do it through your personal brand or through your actual like business?
Yeah. So this is one of those things where I disagree with Gary Vee a lot, where he says you don't have to worry about the amount of followers and you don't have to worry about this and that, right? But when you really look at how people kind of validate you nowadays, they don't look at, your college resume. They don't look at your job resume. They look at your social media platform,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they really put a lot of validation towards that little blue check mark or how many followers you have, right? So my biggest thing is use whatever platform you have the biggest following, where you look the most like you have authority and you have, credibility, and use that platform to do all of your outreach. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm so big on leveraging your TikTok audience over to your Instagram, because if two people message me and they both want to schedule the exact same time for a podcast, right? Let's just say, and one of those people have 300 followers and the other one has 30,000 followers. Subconsciously, I am more inclined to believe that the guy with 30,000 followers is a lot more credible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes
So
sense.
that's why, yeah. So that's why I think that portion of what Gary Vee talks about, I don't really agree with. I think his message is very good for people that are just kind of getting started. But as you evolve and as your brand starts to grow, I think that message kind of gets pushed back, where you really have to focus on, like, okay, where are people paying attention to validate you? And it's not so much like you have to prove someone to someone else. But if you're going to be doing a lot of outreach and if you want people to take you seriously, you have to have that social media following. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah, definitely. So I kind of want to loop back to say that you were like in high school, and like you weren't like fully yourself. You were like more insecure, right? And the reason why I want to loop back to that was because I felt like that as well. And I think a lot of high schoolers nowadays, especially with social media, will definitely feel insecure, right? So like, what do you have to say for people who are like don't feel too good about themselves, don't know what to do in life, and like basically like they just dive into college not knowing what they want to do? Like if you were to like tell some kid who wants to go into college but doesn't really know what to do, what do you think is like the best advice? Is it like find your true passion and trying to kind of like monetize that, or what?
Yeah. So my first question is, why are you going to college? Right? Are you going to college because you legitimately want to? Like, that's your passion. That's what you've always dreamed of doing. Because if so, good for you. Do it. Find out if it's for you or not. But if you're going to college because it's what your parents want you to do, or it's because what society thinks you should be doing, or it's because what all of your other friends are doing, then you're gonna screw yourself over, because you're gonna make yourself miserable and the whole situation is just gonna blow up in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's a big reason why I went half a semester to college before I dropped out. So that's like 4 weeks. Um,
Well,
uh,
what did your family say when you dropped out? Because I'm assuming that like you said your parents came from Mexico and they probably came to the United States to get like a good education for you, and here you just kind of like dropped out in 4 weeks. And they're probably like, what the heck? I can only imagine, like I have Hispanic parents as well. They're probably gonna get really tight. You know what I mean? But
oh my gosh,
after
yes.
you showed them like your numbers or like your vision, your passion, like what did they say after?
Yeah, so the reason why my parents moved from Mexico to begin with, right, is so that I personally could have that better education, so that they
Yeah.
could, I could follow that American dream of going to college and getting a regular job. Um, and so when I told them that that wasn't going to be the route that I was going to take, it did take, especially my dad, it took him like way, like, like I had just like punched him in the gut. He didn't see it coming at all. And it was really, really tough for them to accept it. We got into a lot of arguments, him trying to convince me that I had to go to college if I really wanted that good life. And me just trying to be like, well, like I know all these individuals who don't go to college and they're all being super successful. Not like knew them
Mm-hmm.
personally, but like knew their social medias and like followed their stories. And so it was a big battle between us of, who's right, who's wrong. And it wasn't until I really started to catch fire with this TikTok thing, and I really, told them my vision of where I wanted to go. And, my biggest motivation to this day is wanting to retire them. I'm not quite there yet, but that's what keeps me going every single day, is the fact that my dad is still working a pretty dead end job, after living here for 18 years, and him not being able to do anything because of his situation, because of where he was born. And so that really, when I told him that was my biggest motivation, and I showed him like the numbers and everything, like that's when it really started to shift to the point where now he's the one texting me a bunch of Gary Vee videos and texting me a bunch of Tony Robbins videos,
You put them on. You put them on.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where they don't believe it until they see it. And especially parents who had no, they didn't grow up with the internet. So they don't really understand it. They don't understand it. It's scary to them, But it all comes down to how bad you want it. And I wanted it bad. Like I knew that I wanted it bad. And I wasn't going to let my parents' temporary disapproval affect my calling in life.
Yeah, for sure.
And I believed in myself to that extent, and so it hurt a lot having that initial disagreement with them, but I believed in myself to the point where that wasn't enough to stop me.
And did you always think that you had like that entrepreneurship knack or like that ability to get to the next step? Or was it ever since that epiphany where you're like, damn, like things are not going well for me right now. I really need to like do something to do what I love and make a nice living. Like, did you just like dive into entrepreneurship, read books, podcasts, everything? Or did you kind of have like a natural tendency to get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So it's funny because I think back and I remember in third grade, I used to, my dad used to love Jolly Ranchers when we were little. Like that was a thing that my dad and I had. We would like sit back, watch movies and eat a bunch of Jolly Ranchers. And so I would steal a little Ziploc baggie of those Jolly Ranchers, take them to school and sell them for 25 cents each at school. And I became known as the guy who would sell Jolly Ranchers to all my friends. And I didn't really think much of it. It's just like, ooh, I'm making a little money. I'm making, $2-3 a day selling Jolly Ranchers in the third grade. I thought I was a baller. And so when I think back now, I'm like, well, I always had that knack of wanting money, like of selling stuff or trading stuff. I also remember in the sixth grade, I had this little this cool little eraser that was like a remote control, and I remember trading my way up starting off with that remote control eraser to eventually getting Modern Warfare 2, which back in the day was like the hot game.
Yeah.
I really wanted Modern Warfare 2, but my parents weren't going to drop $60 on a video game. So I was like, all right, what's another way that I can do it? And so I worked my way. It took me like a month, but I eventually traded my way up to where I was able to get the video game, starting off with a little remote control eraser. So I always had that knack. I always had that ability to smooth talk my way into anything that I really wanted. And before I got into entrepreneurship, I was a personal trainer. And a lot of personal training is going out, getting your own leads, and then having the ability to close them. And I had this almost like ability to close people. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand what I was doing. I just knew that whatever I did and the way that I spoke and how I spoke tended to want people to trust me. And then that trust led to making money, having them sign a deal for 2-3 times of, a week of me training them. And so I always had that ability to understand people, really feel their pain points, and then be able to close them based off of that. I just didn't know what I was doing. And it wasn't until I really got into entrepreneurship and I started understanding the proper mindset and the psychology of selling that I was really like, oh my gosh, like this has been me my whole life. I just always felt entrapped because I was different. I felt like I was doing something wrong by exposing myself like that, that I would get made fun of or whatever. But that was just me. That's always been who I was. I always held myself back because of my limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Do you think that like subconsciously still like you still have those negative thoughts of like, I don't know, like being Hispanic, like still being like overweight back in the day, having glasses or whatever it is? Like, do you still have like that subconsciousness of like, something that's still dragging you back naturally?
Oh, yeah, every day, dude. It's a battle that you're going to have for the rest of your life. If that's something that you struggled with at any point, it's most likely going to be something that you're going to constantly deal with for the rest of your life. It's just having the ability in that moment to understand like, oh, like I'm having this moment of anxiety, or I'm having this moment of self-doubt. Where is this coming from? And then having the ability to, in the spot, kind of do like a quick self-diagnosis and be like, all right, this is what's going on in my head. This isn't who I am. How can I force myself to get out of this mindset and do what I'm supposed to be doing? And it's just a constant battle of trying every day to do something that, you know, puts you a little bit out of that comfort, you know.
Yeah.
And for me it really is talking to people that I don't know. And that's something that I struggle with. I feel like I struggle with like the small talk. I always want to get down into the nitty gritty, like, you know, I want to know like where your pain points are, like tell me everything. But
Yeah.
I struggle getting to that point because I don't know how to do that small talk kind of phase.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, every day I try to at least have some sort of interaction, whether, no matter how small it is, I try to get some sort of interaction or do something that slightly puts me out of my comfort zone, just to kind of prove to myself that, you know, getting out of my comfort zone doesn't always lead to bad things.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And so like with all like your followers across your social media platforms, do you like receive a lot of hate?
I have in the past. Something that I recently started doing with my personal brand is really, really, really embracing my Mexican heritage. And so I started creating some content around that. And of course, you know, when you create content about being Hispanic, you're naturally just going to attract some of the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And it did happen. I made a video recently about U.S. brands that you didn't know were actually made in Mexico, like actually
Mm-hmm.
manufactured in Mexico. And I did get a lot of haters, you know, telling me that I need to go back to my own country, all this, you know, all this garbage. But at the end of the day, I look at their profiles and they either don't have a profile picture, they don't have any content of their own, whatever the case may be. So you know, I understand, and sounds cliche, but like you're never going to get judged by someone doing better than you. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
You're like, it just seems like everyone that judges you always is in a worse position than you are, either whether their social media following or their own personal life. Um, and I also understand that hatred is just a projection of someone's own insecurities. So
And do you respond back or is like to those comments, like all the positive comments, all the negative comments, like you think is the right thing to do, or do you kind of just leave it there?
I'll sometimes respond depending on what the comment is. I'll try to respond with something that is kind of sarcastic, but not mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I just feel
Um,
like with a brand as big as yours on TikTok, you know, I feel like even if you really like want to say something back, like in a negative way, I feel like you kind of have to like, you know, think twice about it, you know, because like I feel like one wrong move, especially nowadays in social media, can really like mess you up, you know?
oh yeah. I mean, how many times do we see, you know, these big celebrities get destroyed because of something that they posted on social media ages ago, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
It's scary. You got to be careful nowadays, you know? Like even if
Mm-hmm.
you say it by accident or someone's recording you and you don't really mean it, because in reality, like no one really knows like who you are actually, you know? Like your best friends can know you, but they don't really know you. But if you say something that doesn't really mean, like that you don't really believe in, like people can kind of like think of it as the wrong way and they'll picture you as someone different, you know? It's kind of messed
Oh
up
yeah.
reality nowadays, you know?
That is, yeah. They take it out of context and blow it up.
Hmm. So now moving forward with your boxed up entrepreneur brand, what are like your goals or like your projections? Like where do you want this your brand to be? Do you have like a goal or do you kind of just work on it every day and see where it leads up to?
Yeah, well, I definitely have certain goals that I've put myself. Like, I definitely want to reach 1 million followers before the end of 2020. That's definitely a goal of mine. And the same thing, I want to. Are you familiar with Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels at all?
I'm familiar with ClickFunnels, yeah, but that name does sound familiar, but I'm not too sure. I mean, I know Tony Robbins
Okay,
and Gary Vee, but not Russell.
okay, yeah. Well, he has this. He obviously runs ClickFunnels, and he has this club. It's called the Two Comma Club, which he does like a whole ceremony. It's like almost like a high school graduation where he gives you this giant plaque. It's this really nice plaque, and it represents anyone who's made $1 million using his ClickFunnels system. And so I have that as my lock screen on for my phone. I have the plaque because I definitely want to see myself hitting that $1 million mark before the end of 2020 as well. That's one of my big goals, is to be a part of that 2 comma club. For ClickFunnels, I want to hear my name being called up. I want to be able to walk across that stage, shake his hand, give me my plaque, hang it in my office. Um, So yeah, I definitely see that, 1 million followers on TikTok. And really my biggest goal is, besides retiring my parents, having the ability to monthly give them a certain amount of money without hurting myself and having them not be able to work. That's a big goal of mine. But really my biggest goal is to inspire people. You know, what you telling me that I was part of your story for a reason why you were able to get out of your own shell and start posting content of your own, like that's
Mm-hmm.
huge for me, because at that point you're talking about legacy. Like your story, if someone were to interview your podcast, you on a podcast, you might mention me. You know, you might be like, "Oh, he was the reason why I was able to do what I did." And I think that's huge. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is such a big deal for me, is having the ability to become a part of other people's stories. Just like Tony Robbins and Gary Vee were that person for me, I want to have that same effect on everybody else too. So that is like really my biggest goal, is to create as much of an impact as I possibly can.
That would be dope. So you want to really like focus on that, right? So like, but in
Yeah.
terms of like for Boston entrepreneur, like, do you want to have like X amount of clients or work with like a lot of personal brands, like big businesses, you know, because a lot of big businesses aren't on TikTok, right? And you know,
Right.
it'll be maybe because they're too slow to move on or to really make a new account on TikTok. But you know, is that something that you want to work with, like maybe even celebrities? Like, how do you kind of picture that?
I definitely picture myself not necessarily working with brands and businesses, but I really love the idea of personal brands. Like that's really what interests me, is getting an individual who always had this self-doubt or always had this limiting belief, and skyrocketing their self-development to the point where their face is what's making them $1 million a year, you know? So that's really what I'm interested in. I'm really interested in personal brands more so than like big corporation businesses. So my biggest goal is to eventually be able to work with, you know, like multi-billionaire entrepreneurs and helping them extend their social media influence, because it's surprisingly, a lot of the world's billionaires aren't on social media, you know.
This is an interesting question. Sorry to interrupt, but like I feel like a lot of people say like there's a lot of billionaires and millionaires out there who are more low key, who don't like being on social media, and that's all right. But do you think that's like the right move? Like, do you think the right move is to be on social media, or is it like whatever? Like, doesn't really
Yeah,
matter.
the social media is the future. And we see it every day. We see these big businesses, giant brands that are closing down every single day, especially with this coronavirus thing, because of their failure to adapt to the market. The market doesn't watch TV anymore. They don't watch like standard TV. The market doesn't watch the newspaper, like read the newspaper. The market doesn't do all that stuff. The market is on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't know anyone our age who isn't on social media in one way or another, on one platform or another. And if you have this failure to adapt to the market, to the new market that's emerging, the future of what's going to be making your business, then you're going to close. And we're seeing it every day. And so I think as an individual, you know, and if you want to be, you know, on the back end of stuff, that's okay. But I know a lot of these individuals want to be like in the spotlight. I know it because I've talked to them, but they
Yeah.
just don't know how. They don't understand it. And so that's where I want to come in and give them the blueprint and just be like, you literally just have to do I will do all of the work for you. You just literally have to be the face of the account.
Yeah.
And
So
so
when
that's really my big goal.
but when you produce like the content on TikTok, you have to make sure that they're on the video, or do you kind of just like put videos or that's not showing a face?
Oh no, all of the clients that I take care for, they all are personal brands. So I write like the
Okay.
scripts, I write everything on the back end for them. They just literally just have to point the phone in front of their face and then record. And I know a little secret that allows me to have access to their TikTok videos, even if they're, you know, because I have clients that live in Australia, I have clients that live in Europe, I have clients that live in other states in the US. And so I kind of figured a little hack through TikTok that allows me to have access to their videos, where I
Mm-hmm.
can go in and edit them and do everything and then just post it for them.
So how many clients do you have right now, and how many people are you mentoring at the moment?
So for automation, I have six automation clients, and for mentorship, uh, well, I consider everyone in the course part of my mentorship, and we crossed. 130 recently. Yeah, 130.
30?
130. So that are
And,
part of the course.
okay, and what's like the rundown of your course? Like, what does it have?
Okay, so it's like divided into multiple sections. The first section is a lot of mindset stuff. So how to get in the proper mindset before you even get started. If you don't have the right mindset before you start anything, you're going to burn yourself out or you're going to fail and you're going to let that failure really, really affect you. So I teach you the mindset first. And the second step is teaching you the psychology behind a viral video on TikTok, how to edit it, what needs to be said, how you need to structure your scripts, all that good stuff in order to start building credibility on TikTok. Because like I said, followers, for better or for worse, dictate a lot of what you can do on social media nowadays. So the biggest thing is building up your credibility so that people start, wanting more from you. So building your TikTok platform. And then the third step is then actually monetizing it. And so what I do with my course is that I also host a webinar. And now this webinar can either be hosted by me, where I'm giving you further lectures on anything that's updating on TikTok, or I'm teaching you a different way to how to make money on TikTok, or I have these entrepreneurs or these other really big TikTok stars who come in and I kind of do like a podcast kind of setting with them, where we talk about how they were able to build their business and then what are their tactics of how they're monetizing their TikTok or how they're making money, whatever they're doing. So we're giving people a wide variety of options to choose from. So if what I'm, what I'm teaching, you don't feel like that's your calling, that's okay. Because I have these other entrepreneurs who I'm leveraging all the attention that I'm getting, providing them value with a free audience where they can start picking out what their dream customers are from my following, and we can start moving those people to their systems or their programs or whatever they got, so that everyone is taken care for. Because we ran into the problem when there was some people that I was personally mentoring who weren't getting the results because the things that I was teaching didn't resonate with them. They couldn't understand it, or it was just too complicated for them, or whatever the case may be. And so the question was, how do we solve that problem? And it's by bringing other people that have other ways of monetizing, introducing their ways of monetizing to this audience, and then having whoever that message resonates with them go off and do their own thing with that individual so that everyone is taken care of.
So if someone has like no followers on TikTok, they make a new account and they want to sell their products or services with 0 TikTok followers, and they take your course, you'll give them the full package, the full rundown on how to grow it, first mindset, how to grow it, and then how to sell the particular product and service.
Exactly. Yep.
Seems like a good thing to do, because I feel like selling a specific product or service, that can be like the tricky part. Maybe the hardest thing is the mindset, because I feel like nowadays, like I said, there's so many ways of making money, and you really have to find like that one thing that you truly like and just go with it, Because I feel like if you go for a business that's really boring, for example, like personally, I went to like CBD thinking that I was gonna make a lot of money and it was a new hot thing, and like 3 months, 4 months down the line, I was like, you know what, like I don't like CBD, I don't like skincare products, like what am I doing? And I kind of just quit. I was like, wow. But that made me think like, okay, like you really got to do something that you genuinely love, that you can work on every day. And that's why I think like the mindset part, knowing what you want to do, just priming yourself to like knowing what you're getting into is like arguably the most important thing,
Yep.
Because you
Absolutely.
can like you can join a course, but then after you're done, like you really got to like follow through, But that's really cool though. So like in terms of like the boxed up entrepreneur, like is there some point where you want to like hire people? Because after having so many mentors, after having so many clients, do you think that you're going to be like bombarded or not have too much time to really, spend individual time with your clients? Like, do you think at some point you're going to have to scale one way or another?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm already in that process of, and a lot of them is coming from the people that I'm mentoring. People that I'm mentoring, I'm giving them the option. If they don't necessarily feel 100% comfortable doing their own thing, well, come work for me. Like I will come join my team, do what I'm doing, and kind of learn on the process while you're getting more of a one-on-one with me if you want to do this. Now, obviously, I'm not just going to take anybody because I want somebody that at least understands what they're doing. But I'm giving them that option too. So within even within the funnel that I've already created with the people that already trust me, if you don't feel comfortable doing this on your own, come work for me,
Do you have
and
like
help me
internship
help.
programs?
Do I have what?
Do you have like an internship program for your brand, or like a place
Not
people
really.
can apply to, or do they just DM you?
Yeah, so I've created like a Facebook group where all the people that are in my program kind of join. So within that Facebook group, I'll put out a message that I'm thinking about hiring one or two people to take some of the load off myself. And if you're interested, DM me. We're gonna do this whole interview process to see who's the best for that situation. And yeah, and I have a lot of friends too that have seen my growth and have seen what I'm doing and are interested in what I'm doing, and so I want to help them too. And so I'm going to take them on as like kind of like personal mentees too. They don't necessarily want to build their own brand yet, but they want to start making money, quit their job so that they have time to build their own brand. So I'm going to start taking some of them on too, teaching them the ropes, having them do their thing, and then, eventually having them grow.
So do a lot of like friends and family kind of like hit you up like, yo, like you're freaking hot on TikTok, you're killing it on social media. Like, how does that like feel, you know? I feel like on TikTok,
Uh,
you can really go from 0 to 100 real quick, you know?
oh
So,
yeah, absolutely. So now simply because when I got started with my brand, for me, being someone that struggled a lot with my self-image and my confidence, I made sure that I stayed away from all of my real life friends and all of my family members online. I made sure to stay as far away from it as possible because I didn't want to deal with that initial judgment, of like
yeah.
getting started. But now that I'm starting to scale, I do get a lot of DMs and I do get a lot of people coming up to me. They're like, "Oh my gosh, dude, like you're on TikTok, like you're killing it on there." Like, I do get a lot of those people. And I'm not going to lie, it does feel good. It inflates my ego a little bit. But, at the end of the day, it's just coming back down and realizing that I still have a long way to go and for myself. And yeah, just kind of keep doing my thing. But I do get a couple people that come up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like a crazy story was I was at a rave, in February earlier this year, and out of nowhere, this guy just comes up to me and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're the guy talking about business on TikTok, right?" And I was like, "Holy crap! Like such a small world
Yeah.
that you saw me here, And it's crazy. Yeah, it is pretty crazy.
It's definitely a small world. And like, I feel like previously, like TikTok, a lot of it is localized because like a lot of my family members now are on TikTok and like they definitely like find me now. Like
Mm.
I personally like, I don't know, when they say like, oh, like you have like this amount of 10,000 followers, like I don't know, I kind of try to ignore it because like I said on TikTok, I just like talking to the camera, imagining that no one's in front of me, you know, but now like people in my inner circle know what I'm doing, and like I guess it's you gotta like deal with it, you know what I mean? But
Absolutely.
do you believe that like it's okay just to work on one thing that you genuinely like and create a living off of that, or do you think you need to have multiple sources of income? Like, do you have any other sources of income that you have right now? Other entrepreneurship
I
ventures?
do. Yeah, so I do have, I guess, like side hustles and like mini projects. Nothing too big, but it's always good to diversify, right? Because like with this whole TikTok thing, if TikTok disappears today, I'm I'm gonna lose a big chunk of my income, but I'm not gonna lose all of my income. And so I'll have something that I can fall back on and still be able to produce money just in case anything happens. But I think when you're first getting started, you should try to focus on one thing because you're going to get overwhelmed, especially if you're first getting started. So I do believe when you're first getting started, try to focus on one thing, put all of your energy into one thing, try to blow it up as much as you possibly can, and then start shifting your attention other places once you get the ball rolling. So
Are you the type of person who has like mad ideas and just want to like do everything? Because like I'm gonna be a little selfish here. So like that was kind of me. Like I had like too many ideas and I worked on everything. And if you work on everything, you're working on nothing, you know, until I just focus on one thing and one thing only. And then from there, as you start to scale up and start to monetize and start to scale, then you can work on other things, right? Is that kind of what you're going through right now? Like now that you have Boxed Up Entrepreneur, you're making money, now you're diving into other side hustles.
exactly. Yeah. Um, yeah, pretty much you nailed it on the head. I think it's about there's this thing called shiny object syndrome, right? Where you bounce from one thing
Mm-hmm.
to another if you don't get that instant gratification. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So building your own brand, I think, kind of takes you away from all that because you're actually enjoying the process. You're not only doing it for the money. And that's why I so strongly believe in personal brands, because it's you. Like, you're just talking about things that you actually already talk about on a daily basis, but now you're getting paid to do so. And so I think that kind of shifts the focus from, trying all these things and to being like, oh, I actually enjoy what I'm doing. Like, that's crazy. I've never had this feeling before.
So it's like it's the best resume. So instead of having something written words on a piece of paper, you have your social media and you talk about what you're doing, your business, your personal brand, the things that you love. I guess that's the new wave right now. Or not the new wave, but
Exactly.
that's dope though. So I don't want to like take too much of your time, but like just to like kind of close out, what like podcast, what books do you kind of recommend to kind of like get you into that mindset of entrepreneurship? Because right now entrepreneurship is like really cool. Like everyone's doing it. And I feel a lot of people are doing it just because it's cool. You know what I mean? But like you said, you need to know where you're getting into and kind of trying to find like your true passion. Because I always believe that like the best way to make a business is creating something that you really love and want to do for like the rest of your life. What do you think? Like what books, what podcasts, what blogs do you recommend to kind of help people get that mindset?
Yeah. So the best book right here, Think and Grow Rich. This is like a staple, right? Like every entrepreneur has read this multiple times. And if you're just getting started, this is the book you got to start off with. Number one, like before you dive into anything else, make sure you read this first, Think and Grow Rich. That's the number one. And then after that, after you read Think and Grow Rich, you pretty much have the foundation to do whatever the heck you want to do after that, right? Like it gives you literally everything you need. The second book, so like every one of my personal mentors and mentees, I always tell them Think and Grow Rich first. That's the number one. So first, when you first get started, make sure you read that. Then after you're done with Think and Grow Rich, I always tell them to read the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone, because that really focuses on like hustle and how much effort is actually required. So Think and Grow Rich puts you in the right mindset, and then 10X kind of shows you the reality of the situation of what you're getting yourself into. So I think that kind of gets you into that kind of path that you really need to take. They're both very general books. Now, after you read those two, then I really believe that you're finally at the point where you're ready to decide what the heck you're going to do. And so once you've read those two, then it's get a book that's very centered around what you actually want to do. So like for anyone that deals with me, I always then tell them to go get .com Secrets by Russell Brunson, because it teaches you how to start building your social media following, what kind of content you need to start posting. So all of my ideas that I get from my own personal brand, I only put out content because I read that book and I understand how to get my dream follower to come to me so that I don't have to go look for them. So then I believe once you read Think and Grow Rich and 10X Rule, then it's really time to hone in on what you want to do and start reading books that are specific on that.
And do you still read books? Do you still have the time to read like books or what?
Yeah. I mean, I have a bunch of different books. Some of that I haven't even had a chance to read. But yeah, I'm a firm believer in books, because wherever attention goes, energy flows. So if your attention is on these books, right, you're getting all this knowledge, then your energy is naturally going to showcase that, and you're going to start seeing the world from a different lens, because your mind is filled with all of these thoughts and all these
Definitely.
ideas. And all of a sudden you see a bird flying across the sky and you're like, holy crap, that just gave me a wonderful business idea. Whereas before that, it was just a bird flying across the sky.
I was seeing that like you're only one book away of changing your life. You know what I mean? It's, as corny as it sounds, like one book can really like change your mindset and, change the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely. Give me 1 second. I'm just making sure my laptop doesn't die on us.
No problem.
All right, cool.
So final question, just to let the audience know, where can people find you? Where can they find your course, your content? Where can they find you?
So it's Boxed Up Entrepreneur, all one word. That's on Instagram and on TikTok. That's where I'm most active. And as far as the course, the link is in all of my social media profiles. You just have I have it so that my profile leads you to that link, so it's hard to miss it. If you're interested in the course, just follow me on any of the social media platforms, and you'll be on your way to finding it. So Boxed Up Entrepreneur on TikTok and on Instagram.
All right, so you heard it, guys. So go on Back to Entrepreneur, check Jesus out, check his content, and I really do hope you reach 1 million followers, bro. You're definitely gonna reach it. This if TikTok does not go down, you're gonna reach it. It's a matter of when, you know. I
I
really hope it
appreciate
happens.
that.
All right, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna